Hey guys, and welcome to the newest episode of Be Hero Presents the Bump Card Wrestling Podcast. I am your host, as always, Brian, and with me tonight is my tag partner, Psycho. How are you tonight, Psycho?
I'm doing pretty good. Not too shabby.
Not too shabby. Well, I am excited for this episode, mostly because I am a fan of the macabre, as it were, and we are going to talk about some of the worst injuries in wrestling. There'll be a whole variety of them. I've had a number of injuries myself in the ring. I believe you have as well. There's at least a few teeth left out on the floor from you. So we'll talk about all of that. But before we do that, as we do every week, we will talk about the weekly World Wrestling News. So, Psycho, as we always do, hit me with that wrestling news.
So I guess the big news story, or one of the big news stories of the week, is a man named Ricochet not re-signing with, or not renewing his contract with WWE. Pretty interesting development there, but not that surprising. But on one hand, it kind of is, because there's a lot of names like him, like Kevin Owens that did resign, or an AJ Styles that did resign, and different things like that. But Ricochet decided to part ways.
Well, if you think about it too, so is Becky Lynch. Becky Lynch has not resigned yet.
I believe she will, though.
I do as well, and I wouldn't be surprised to see Ricochet getting money thrown at him if he chose, or if they chose to get him to come back. I just don't know if they're going to do that. He's a great mid-card talent, but I don't know if he's worth a ton of money. And he's started to get, like, within the last year or so, he's really started to get like a stride going for great matches, fans behind him, great stories, right? Getting a good push. So it does kind of surprise me that he doesn't want to stay and such. I do think, though, the way that they run him off is really done well.
Mm-hmm.
Because it works in a way where he could either stay off TV and then not come back, or he can stay off TV and then they decide to re-sign him and then he could come back. Like, there is no definitiveness, but it's one of those great things that if he's gone, okay. If he's not gone, here's a great storyline to build into it. So, but I could see him easily going to AEW or Impact or MLW or over into Japan, all the way over there, whatever.
I think Tony Khan would pay him a boatload of money. I think he could probably get paid more money to go to AEW, and he'd probably have better matches. So I don't see the downside of him betting on himself, basically, and going to AEW, because I feel like it's only going to help his stock. He'll get to have the type of matches that he wants to have, and probably be used better, because you're probably going to get him in matches with, like, Ospreay and things like that, which are going to be amazing.
Oh, yeah, there's plenty of matches. If you haven't seen it, there's several matches out there between him and Ospreay when they're on the Indies that are just unbelievably amazing. Ricochet is one of the few people that can go at the same speed as Ospreay with the same crispness and things. So
yeah, and I don't think it's a coincidence, though, that Will Ospreay actually commented on Ricochet before Ricochet decided not to renew, and basically saying how he was being criminally underutilized in WWE, and that he wasn't allowed to do the things that he, knew he could do, because he's been in the ring with them, obviously, and they're close. But I don't see a downside for Ricochet leaving. I mean, he keeps his name, because he has that, so he can go as Ricochet, and at least for a short amount of time, he'll have some good matches there.
Yeah, and I think him doing a 3-year stint somewhere else, or even as far as maybe a 5-year stint anywhere else, and then coming back as like a conquering hero, I think can only help him. And with some insider news, can't say sources or anything like that, but the WWE are looking for more experienced indie talent, which Ricochet is. I think that's only going to be able to make it so that they're more willing to pick him back up, because not only is it a investment they'd already put money into, but if that's the path they're going down, are these indie darlings that are experienced? There's not bigger indie darling than Ricochet was. So
yeah, and I don't know. I think another news story. I mean, it's not, and just more kind of news on it is WWE working with TNA. So obviously Jordan Grace, worked the NXT shows, and had a pretty good showing.
a bloody showing.
Yeah, and I hear that that's not the last of them kind of having a working relationship with TNA.
Not just TNA.
Not just TNA.
So this is not official by any means yet, but
breaking news! Breaking news!
On June 16th, so next week, I believe it's next Sunday. It would be the 16th. There's an official announcement with WWE and Noah in Japan.
Wow.
But they haven't said what it is or anything like that. But it's the two of them together doing the announcement. So obviously they're doing some kind of collaboration.
So they're, WWE is basically doing their own kind of version of Forbidden Door here with a little bit of this to counter that. And but I hear that they're going to send a WWE star to TNA to appear on their TNA pay-per-view.
Yeah.
So I know Jordan Grace has issued an open challenge at the show, and so could see somebody from WWE or NXT, showing up there, basically a talent exchange. And I could totally see them with these other promotions like that about basically not just utilizing their guys, but sending guys that need freshening up, to go work these other shows and stuff. Basically, it's the territories coming back.
Yeah.
Because that's what they used to do in the old territory days is, when somebody, wasn't getting over it, they'd move on to another territory, or the promotion would ship them off, for 6 months to a year or whatever. And then they'd come back, and after they figured out how to get over there, and they were fresh again.
Uh-huh.
Right. So, and WWE kind of did that back in the day with ECW too. They'd send guys down there like Al Snow and things like that to work there, and then bring them back after they got over with a gimmick there. So, yeah, very, very cool times to be a wrestling fan.
And a wrestler. Like right now, you have the best opportunity that you'll ever have. The door, I won't say is wide open, but it's more open than it's ever been to get in, right? So if you're a worker, take those opportunities. I just recently did my WWE tryout with Gabe Sapolsky at Devotion Championship Wrestling, but I know he's got them all over. If you go to Book at Gabe on Twitter, he's got his whole listing of everywhere he's going to be. So he's also great to listen to when he does his Twitter, what are they called, portals or whatever. It's a little Twitter podcast things that you can do. He's great to listen to. So
yeah, and then did you see that former WWE Spanish announcer Hugo Savinovich is now part of the AEW commentary team?
I didn't, but that's not a huge surprise.
Yeah, so kind of a cool thing, because he was with WWE for years.
Yeah. AEW actually has a really low Hispanic demographic,
right?
So grabbing him on there is a fantastic idea, because it's the Hispanic JR essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And they're also doing a lot more with CMLL, So they're really trying to get that Spanish demographic.
If they can do that, then I think that's an awesome move.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. Let's see here. Here's a news story. Hulk Hogan in the news here. He launches Real American Beer, which is oh, he's joined Steve Austin and The Rock in launching his own alcoholic beverage. So they're not joining, but they're, Austin and The Rock have their own beverages as well. So interesting. I'm sure there's some jokes out there on this that you could probably come up with there. What do you think about Hogan having a beer on the market?
Well, it seems to be the trend as a celebrity to have some variant of alcohol at this point, so it's fine, I guess. I don't like Hogan doesn't scream to me though like a beer. Like,
yeah, is that the kind of items he was talking about?
Right? Honestly, if I was gonna go alcohol for Hogan, I would probably go to some form of maybe like a margarita, right?
Okay.
And do it that way, or maybe a daiquiri, because it's that coloringness and stuff like that. And it's also very Florida to have like a margarita or a daiquiri. Go that way. So
yeah, I think I can just picture like Hogan like doing a commercial for his beer and basically like, yes, drink. Yeah, brother, drink this beer and you too can feel like you're slamming an 800-pound giant and then the next day they'd pass away. Just I don't know. Just yeah, maybe he was drinking
that. You get 42-inch pythons.
Yeah, or 42-inch waist or cut. I don't know.
Working towards the 42-inch waist.
yes. Yeah. Interesting. I don't know if Real American's the right name for it. I mean, obviously, that's what they're going with, but that just seems. Yeah, I don't know. Don't know about the name on it, Real American Beer. I mean, but yeah. I mean, I'm sure he'll sell some. So.
Oh yeah, people will buy it. If anything, people will buy it for the collector item. So.
Oh yeah, and say they bought it before it goes belly up. Pardon the pun. All right, should we talk some injuries?
All right, yeah, let's go right into it. There are a variety of injuries that we can talk about. Before we jump into that, though, Psycho, before we talk about the big name ones, I want to hear about you. What's the worst injuries you've ever had in the
ring? The worst one was obviously I was in a tag team match with it was me and the assassin Spencer Cage. Teaming up against Kid Chaos and Steve Gatorwolf, and there's a weird dynamic for teams, but assassin Kerry, Spencer Cage, whatever you want to call him, we had this spot planned where he was going to pick me up in a gorilla, press, and he'd throw me out onto our opponent, Kid Chaos, on the floor, right? And I do a crossbody onto him, right? Well, we had done I've taken the gorilla press slam to the floor before, but it's different when you're relying on somebody to catch you. Because when you're the easiest way to protect yourself there, at least how I did it, when I would take it and just do a face bump to the floor, is he would drop me and I would just take it on my chest. It would hurt, but I never got injured from that. Right? Well, in this case, Kerry decides to do it a little bit differently. So instead of kind of launching me like gorilla press style or crossbody style or whatever, he kind of goes and drops me, but then Kid Chaos isn't the biggest guy, and so
he weighed like he was straight muscle,
Mhm.
but he also was straight muscle at 135 pounds
Right.
and like 5'4".
So I should have protected myself better, because I put complete trust there, and I love Kay, I love him, but I should have protected myself a little bit better, because he basically, when it happened, he basically caught me like a flapjack, and I took like it flapjack style, like my face like bounced off the gym floor. It was not a mat, it was the gym floor, and instantly I knew it hurt, because I chipped it. I chipped a hole, some teeth, and my mouth was bleeding from it, and I like took it, and I was so pissed at the time, because I was like that happened, because that was the first time I ever got hurt. Like everything else, like I felt like I was invincible, and that kind of woke me up a little bit. Yeah, it's not the first time, because there's another story earlier, but it's the first time since I've been wrestling matches on shows, and so when I took it, my first instinct was I took the teeth that were in my hand now, that had spit out into my hand, and I chucked them across the gym floor, got in the ring, and chopped the hell out of Kay, and and nobody knew I was hurt. I should have communicated it better, but nobody knew until till the match was pretty much over, or like towards the end. Maybe the fans knew, I don't know, but the guys in the match did not, because I just finished the match and kept going. But afterwards, we were like trying to find the teeth. We never did find them.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then I had to get my teeth capped. So that was probably the worst thing that happened, because I've been banged up, a lot, but I never had to have any surgeries or anything like that. That was the worst thing that I had. But yeah, it's pretty memorable. And then what's funny about that too is that Stevie Slick was there in the crowd for that one, and this was when we were playing nice with each other. And I know, not like that, but we weren't completely hating each other at this point, and he was actually trying to help me find my teeth. And yes, and then like I'd say like there, like a few shows later, I went to a UCW show, and Steve takes across, or somebody like does the kind of the same spot to him and tosses Steve out of a battle royal onto somebody else. And as Steve's going up the ramp, he kind of is like, I still have my teeth. Yeah. So clearly a shot. But yeah.
Oh jeez. Oh, good old school Utah wrestling.
Yeah.
I have several stories about being banged around pretty difficult or pretty hard and such. Like bloody nose here, black eye, and so on and so forth.
Like when you tried to take the gorilla press slam to the floor and it did not go well for you.
That was not my fault. So, in homage of the man who trained me, Nick, I went to do the same spot, except for the other spot, the one where it's just the gorilla press to the outside.
Right.
And
which I've taken a million times and was fine every time from that. But
the person I was trusting to do this with has been a friend of mine for years, 20 plus years at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Or from right now, 20 plus years. At that point, it was probably like 8-9 years. But anyhow, he gets me up in the gorilla press. We walk to the outside, and there are mats on 3 of the 4 sides of the ring. Of course, he goes to the side that does not have a mat, and he recognizes it. So instead of walking me around, like popping into the crowd or anything like that, and then eventually land me on one side that does have a mat or whatever, he's like, "Oh, I'll just throw him here." But for that spot, you want to try and land as flat as you can,
right?
And so I was getting ready to do so. Well, he was trying to be nice, so he tried to swing my feet out first, and caused me to over rotate. So instead of landing on my belly or on my feet, which is what his plan was, it caused me to over rotate, and I landed directly on my ass on the hard on the hard gym floor, and that sucked. I didn't get a compression fracture, but it definitely messed my back up for a while. But if you remember correctly, Psycho, I ended up having a neurological issue for the rest of the night. I ended up with a severe stutter for the remainder of the night.
I do remember that.
And then we went to order dinner at like Applebee's or Chili's or something after, and I was sitting there trying to order, and I couldn't order like straight because I was just stuttering so bad. It caused the weirdest effect to me. But that one, I don't know if I'd say was on the worst. I think the most recent one I had, which was the stinger I had in my neck, where I lost feeling in my legs after getting rolled up for a crucifix pin, was the worst. And it's only because, and it wasn't even like anything difficult. It was a crucifix pin, but it was just so terrifying. I ended up having no feeling from my waist down for a short period of time. And this happened in mid-match. And the ref we had was still fairly green, so he didn't recognize the issue that I was having. And the guy I was working was still green. And so he comes over to pick me up and helps me up. And I mean, I can, like, my legs still had strength in them, but they didn't have feeling. Like, I couldn't control them, per se. So with his assistance, I was able to kind of stand. So we work a little bit more, and then I eventually crumble again, roll out of the ring, and then my buddy who came out with me for the match, I told him I was injured. He then tells the ref throws the X, and we head to the back. By the time we get to the back, I started getting feeling back in my legs, which was that crazy like pins and needles feeling you get when your foot's asleep. Mm-hmm. I had that from my waist down. It was just insane. But yeah, I had lost all feeling, and it happened right, like almost instantly. Like I get rolled up for the pin off a crucifix pin, and we were both sitting. Like I was doing a cocky pin on him, and he rolls me up for the pin, and I don't know if my neck was just like in the wrong position or what, but I pinched something. And I remember going and hearing the one and then the two on the in the mats. And as the two hit, I told my feet, or I told my leg, all right, legs, kick out. And they responded with no. And I was very worried. Happily, though, he was expecting me to kick out, so he loosened up the pin. So I was able to kind of just roll my shoulders a bit to get off the mat. But yeah, it was hands down the scariest injury, quote unquote, thing I had I've ever had in the ring. So
yeah, and isn't it weird though that like some of the worst injuries that they happen on things that should be routine. They should be so simple, things that maybe you've done a million times, or things that it's like, wait, that's what did it? Because we've done a lot of other crazier things where everything ended up just fine.
Yeah. We did a spot. I don't think it was you and me, but I did a spot way back when where it was a ladder match, and we did it where we had a ladder across two of us, laying across two of us while we were on tables, and then somebody took a powerbomb on the ladder from another ladder to put all three of us ostensibly down through tables and that ladder and such. And we were all fine. I've bounced off ladders. I've fallen off of ladders. I've been put through tables. At bar fights, my Lord, so much stuff has happened at bar fights, for bar fights matches. They're always crazy. If you guys have never been there, hell, Saturday at the last show in term, we had a sponsor come in, and we did a spot where the sponsor just destroyed me with a chair, and he destroyed me with a chair. I explained to him how to do it and everything else, and he waylaid me. There was no hesitation. There was no trying to be nice about it, because I told him hit me as hard as he can. And dude, like, he lifts, right? It's a pre-workout sponsor, and he lifts. And he laid into me. My back was red. I had red marks across my back. Well, I'm like, cool. You didn't, pussyfoot around it, man. You hit me. So, I've been hit. I've gone through a ton of stuff. I German suplex somebody through a table from the apron to the outside, like a whole variety of things. And a crucifix pin roll up is what happens that gets me. So I get a stinger and start losing legs, feeling my legs. But segueing from there, injury that's fairly famous in Utah wrestling is that of the Super Destroyer,
Yes.
Jamin. Who's he was a friend and mentor to both of us, and he was a big dude. He was, what do you think? Jamin was like 6'2", 6'1".
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Somewhere in the range of like 350 pounds.
Yeah.
And he's a big dude. His neck was probably the same size as my waist, right? Which is honestly what saved him. He took a DDT, right? And don't let Jake Roberts hear you say this, but the DDT is a pretty simple move to take. So, and the guy gave it to him was, the guy's done it thousands of times. Jamin's taken the move thousands of times. And it was just this one time he landed just funny and ended up breaking 2 vertebrae in his neck. And they were like C1, C2. So like they're right up there at the top. And the doctor told him that if he didn't have that monstrous neck, it probably would have killed him. Off of a move he's done thousands of times.
Yeah, that one was definitely. I wasn't there for it, but I definitely heard about it, and
I was.
Yeah. What are some other Utah wrestling ones? I know there was. Yeah,
there was the not concussion. What the hell's his name? Derek Donetti. So Derek Donetti, they were working a show for UCW, and I can't remember if it was a Cinco de Mayo show or what it was. It was an outside show, and he goes to do a
suicide dive, wasn't it? Wasn't it? Oh,
that was a dive because a flip because he ends up landing on his ass.
Yes.
So he goes and does some form of flip from the top rope to the outside, and lands directly on his ass, and ends up getting a compression fracture up his spine, and took him out for a long time.
Yeah. It was thought that could be career ending.
Yeah. On something. I'm not gonna say simple.
Right.
It's not. But it's just insane. Yeah, right. I didn't take it. But that happened actually before that spot with me when I got thrown to the outside and landed on my ass. So when I landed like that, I was actually worried I was going to get with the compression fractures in my back, like he did, and such. And happily, I didn't. So
there was one with Adon Reyes in a ladder match or something like that, where he broke he injured his neck. You remember that?
So it wasn't a ladder match.
It wasn't a ladder match. Okay.
No, the injury was in a tag match he was in. Okay. He was working against ADHD, Tom Chad and Andrew Sowell. And they were giving him a what the hell is it called? My brain just turned off. LOD's finish. The
Doomsday Device.
So for those who don't know, Doomsday Device is the victim is sitting on the shoulders, chicken fight style, on a guy. What gets walked over to the corner that way. The other gentleman in the tag match gets up on the top rope and comes off with a flying shoulder or a flying clothesline. And there's been adaptations over the years, but essentially that's the basic one. And you have 2 ways of taking this move. It can either be done where the person giving this move to you, the one on the bottom, ends up taking a step out and then kind of landing in an electric chair drop, or the Good Luck Chuck version, which is as soon as they feel the pressure go of getting hit by the clothesline, he flips your legs up so you flip backwards. Adon thought it was the second one that was going to happen to him. when Sowell was going to go, I'm sorry, not Sowell, Tom Chad, who was the one on the bottom, was the one that was going to flip him, or he thought he was going to flip him. Tom Chad went to step back to go down and stopped halfway through when he realized that Adam was going back, and then landed on his head. And ended up breaking his neck, and he was out for 6 months, 8 months, something like that.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I remember hearing about that. That's scary.
Yeah, and then there was Rick Knight, Irving, who's worked with War and STF and EPW and such. He actually was the impetus for me to come back to the ring. Was his entry. So at the time I was taking some time off. I thought I might just stay done from my time off because I was, we just had a kid. In fact, it was the first or second show after we had our oldest daughter that we were bringing her around, and so I was in the front row. And I knew all these guys. I worked with them all for years. And Irvin, who works in Idaho, again, as Rick Knight, he and another guy from Idaho, Garabai, they came down to tag against, I want to say, a different breed, Spike and Izzy. And in the match, towards the end of the match, Irving, who's a bigger dude. Irving's probably just shy of 6 foot, if not 6 foot, and then probably 280. And he's on the second rope, getting ready to do a frog splash to, I think it was Izzy. And traditionally, when you do a move like a frog splash, you want the person to be perpendicular to you. All right. So when you jump, you can jump straight, land or sprawl out and land on them. Well, Izzy was parallel to Irving. So Irving decides off the second rope to jump and turn and go, which again is perfectly fine.
Yeah, I've seen Rob Van Dam do that. Mm.
Yeah. But when Rob does it or other people do it, they do it with an arc, right? So you jump and you arc and you come down fairly flat. All your forward momentum is going down instead of forward.
Right.
Irving jumped out and turned, which means all of his momentum was going forward. So what then ended up happening is when his leg actually hit first, it caused his hip to come out of socket. And then when the rest of the body followed, it popped his hip back in the socket. So hard, it shattered his socket in his hip.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It was almost instantaneous. As soon as he hit, he rolled out of the ring and just in pain. And he happened to roll right in front of me. And so I'm right down there on the ground checking on him and making sure he's okay. And he's telling me he's not okay. So I look over to Kerry, who's at the ring announcer's table. And this was for War at the time. I throw up the X. I'm like, he's not good. He's hurt. So then Kerry comes over. And then Irving being Irving, he refused to have anybody help him to the back. So he's hobbling on one leg with a broken hip socket on the other leg. And gets all the way to the back. So I'm right there with him, making sure to catch him when he's starting to stumble and fall and helping him back up. We get him all the way to the back. Once we get through the curtain and around the corner, he hits the ground just in instant pain. So we called the EMTs and got him there and everything else. But that's when I found out later that that's what happened is he broke his hip socket. But yeah, it was one of the crazier injuries I've seen in Utah wrestling.
I remember seeing footage because you mentioned Izzy and Spike, and that reminded me of a spot where Spike was going to. That one was a ladder match or Deadly Sins or something, and he was on the top of the ladder and he was going to do a splash off, but his feet or the ladder slipped and he got his feet caught, and he came straight down. Do you remember seeing this?
I do.
That had to be one of the craziest things that I ever saw.
And he was perfectly fine. He totally got back up and was totally fine.
It looked like he was dead. It could have killed somebody.
That reminded me, though, thinking about those two. One actual injury that really that sucked for me, and I I had for a while after was I was working a 6-man against them and another buddy. There was Colby, and it was me, Glade, and Jagger, I think. I don't remember exactly who all was in the match, but it was against those three. And so at the beginning of the match, during the shine, I was getting my ass kicked because I was the smaller of everybody right there, or the heels. So going through, getting my ass kicked, boom, boom, boom. And then they were going to do a spot where they would have each of them do a standing moonsault, tag out, standing moonsault, tag out, standing moonsault. Well, the first one to do it is Spike. And Spike grabs me, puts me down for a body slam to get me in position for this. But I guess he thought I was too close to the ropes in the corner that he did this in. So he ended up tucking his legs more on the moonsault than he needed to. So when he landed, he actually ended up bringing his knees directly into my chest. And I ended up breaking 2 ribs from it. Which totally sucked. So as soon as he landed on me and everything else, when he goes for the tag, I rolled out. I'm like, nope, now I'm done. Not doing anymore. So rolled out, fought him off, boom, 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 cut him off for the start the heat on. I think it was Izzy, and then threw them in, tagged in one of my tag partners, and I was just in the corner the rest of the time, just holding my ribs. And they found out later I ended up breaking 2 of them. They weren't a severe break; they were just like a light break. But I could not breathe. I couldn't do anything for like weeks.
Yeah, I just remembered an injury, not for me, but one of the first ones that I had seen from Marcus Tyler. He had, the guy that trained me, we were doing a show just for family. And it was actually, he was wrestling Brick Alexander. And it was like a no DQ match. And of course, during this, Marcus had to bleed. But so he's, bleeding buckets, like, because when he does a blade job, he does not hold back. But he's on this ladder, and the ladder starts like slipping and whatnot, and the crowd, is chanting like, "Please don't die," so that was a spot, but then he put the ladder down and laid Brick on top of the ladder, and he was going to do he put the ladder on top of Brick, and he was going to do a swanton off of the ropes onto the ladder. And Brick was like rolling out of the way, and the referee was like, because he was like, this is too crazy, starts pulling the ladder out of the way. But because where he was pulling it, when Marcus hits the swanton, he lands right on the top part of the ladder, which is like the stiffest part. Ruptured his kidney.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. Yeah, he was down and out from that one. It was insane. It's like, oh my gosh, he's gonna die. But yeah, good times.
You could say that.
Yeah, good memories. Yeah. And
I'm sure there's tons that they were missing.
Yes, I'm sure. Some of the biggest ones in professional wrestling, obviously, there's the one where Sid Vicious.
Yeah, it was the first one I went to.
Yes. Whoever told him to do a drop kick or a kick off the second rope. I've never seen him do that before, ever. And he decides to pull it out here on pay-per-view. In a main event pay-per-view match. I think it was a triple threat, if I'm not mistaken. Him against Scott Steiner, against Road Warrior Animal, believe it or not. It was some weird, yeah. But he jumps off to do his kick, and his leg completely bends and snaps the wrong way. One of the most gruesome injuries. Guy, listeners, if you have not seen this, Google it, YouTube it. It's
Do
sick.
not. It is horrifying. I'll give you the best way I can explain it. Right, what it honestly looks like, because he doesn't come off the top rope; he's coming off the second.
The second rope.
So he comes off the second rope, and it looks honestly like what he's trying to do is do a jumping big boot. So he goes to jump, puts one foot up, and puts the other one down to land on like you would do a big boot.
Mm-hmm.
And he a big boy. He's 6'7", I think, and he probably was over 300 pounds at this time.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a lot of weight going onto a leg, and it just snapped right at his fibia and tibia, so the bottom two parts of his leg.
Mm-hmm.
It was just gruesome. Like, if you ever heard of the Joe Theismann in football, it's ostensibly like that for wrestling.
Yeah, it's it's definitely one of the most surreal injuries I've ever witnessed. And then another one was Shawn Michaels against The Undertaker in a casket match at Royal Rumble 98. Undertaker gives Shawn Michaels a backdrop over the rope, but he's supposed to like go over the casket. But he like nicks like his back like on the edge of the casket as
he catches down. Like his cheeks as he's going down.
Yeah, it's
and he ends up with a compression fracture, kind of like we talked about earlier with Duggan.
Yeah,
or not Duggan, with Jannetty.
Yeah, ends up, he ended up basically retiring for 4 years off of it. Yep. Yeah, kind of, something crazy. If you go back and watch it, it looks painful. Like it looks, but he kind of walks it off in the match. He kind of takes it.
Adrenaline's a hell of a thing.
Yeah, adrenaline. Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah. We're gonna go with that.
This is old school Shawn Michaels here. That one was pretty gnarly. There was obviously another one that comes to mind, Stone Cold Steve Austin against Owen Hart.
Yep, the sit down tombstone.
Yes, yep, SummerSlam 97. Owen, flips Austin around into a tombstone, but instead of kneeling like the Undertaker does it, he does the sit down. And Austin was just a little bit too far down his body, I guess. Ends up hitting his, compressing his neck right into the mat because there's nowhere to go. Gets a stinger, breaks his neck, basically. And he had to change his whole wrestling style because of that. And he couldn't finish. He tried to finish the match, and they did, kind of, with one of the worst looking roll-ups ever. Like basically, Owen does the right thing. He's basically buying time, jawing with the crowd, but you could tell, like, if you look at Owen Hart's face, he's got concerned, like, like, oh God, what do we do? Because if you remember, the stipulation of the match was if Austin lost, he'd have to kiss the backside of Owen Hart. So he couldn't lose. So he couldn't just lay there and let Owen pin him and change the finish, because how's he going to, do that with a broken neck, and would mess everything up. So, and Austin's character wouldn't have survived that. So Austin calls it, basically. He says, roll up for the win. So Owen Hart basically backs into it, and Austin just puts his arm up, and Owen falls down. There's like no pressure on his shoulders at all. He just lays there, 1, 2, 3. Horrible. But that's all he could do.
Yeah. And I mean, what can you do? Honestly, in a scenario like that, you have to call your audible, or have the ref call it out. But with that stip, you need to keep the story going, especially back then. It's a whole different ballgame now. But back
Right.
then,
Now they stop the match, right? Or at least they should stop the match, unless you're in AEW, I guess. Then the match continues. They've done some crazy things that led to injuries, like John Moxley, right?
Yep.
In his match.
and Ray Phoenix in that same match.
Yeah.
So
Ray Phoenix got injured in that same
yeah,
match?
he was also got injured in that same match. They were both concussed.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, and then obviously there was the one with Jeff Hardy and Sammy Guevara, where Sammy Guevara does his 450 and lands, or no, was it a shooting star press or was it a 450?
It was a shooting star press.
Okay, and he lands.
That one they did end up. They did stop the match.
Did they?
Yeah.
I thought they continued the match and he hit him with his finisher. And that's why the referee got heat on him for
I'm pretty sure they finished at the end of that match.
Go back and watch it, I guess.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to go back.
Yeah, let's double check on that. But what happens is Sammy Guevara does a shooting star and lands his knees like right onto the neck and face of Jeff Hardy.
Yep.
Sick. Like, it looks painful. His full body weight coming
Well,
down.
I told you too. Like, I told you going for a while that Sammy Guevara was going to hurt somebody because of how reckless he was with his high spot stuff. Like, yeah. I legitimately thought he was going to kill Sting like a dozen times.
Yeah. Yeah, he did that. And then, of course, early on, he had a spot with Matt Hardy where he basically
they were on the scissor lift and they were supposed to go through a table because they were fighting a scissor lift. Sammy spears with him off the scissor lift into a table, but they end up misjudging the distance of the table, and Matt kind of was farther back, so he not only goes like a little bit of his ass through the table, but then it caused him to have more leverage to hitting the concrete underneath. Because that's all was there was a table.
Yeah.
So, and it knocked him loopy too. So,
that
one I can't blame on Sammy though. That was bad prepping. Like WWE does that. They have like boxes underneath,
right?
The tables, and then two
they
tables.
Make it safer. Yeah, for sure. Some other injuries. Obviously, trying to think of some ones that.
Well, yeah, Mick Foley from Hell in a Cell.
Yeah.
And the second part of it, the Hell in a Cell, like the initial part with him going from the top to the Spanish announce table was a called spot. And was meant to be there. So even though I don't think he received any injuries from that per se, like he didn't get anything.
Not really. I mean, he had a tooth that went through his.
That wasn't that one. That was later.
Oh, right. Oh, right.
So that was in the second part, which is actually also when he gets his concussion.
Yes.
So. The spot was for exactly what happened. Everything exactly as what was supposed to happen was planned, right up until they go back up to the top of the cage.
Right.
And when they got to the top of the cage for the second time, which was not planned and not reinforced, like the top of the cage was being held together by zip ties. So for all the cage bits. And not reinforced with metal straps like it does for the outside of the cage, or around the outside of the cage. So that's why, like when you see him walking up there, it like sinks.
It's sagging, yeah.
So when Undertaker goes and gives Mick Foley the clothesline or the chokeslam through that section of the ring or the cage at the top, that was not meant to break. It just happened to. And so when Mick lands into the ring, he knocks himself out. He gets a concussion, and in the process, also knocks the tooth out of his mouth and into his nose, and everything else. Right, and that whole thing was total happenstance, that, and lucky as hell, honestly, that it all worked out the way it did. And then, he gets back in the ring, and you have everybody coming in that comes into the ring, including Terry Funk, who also gets injured in this match. He ends up messing up his shoulder, I think it was, off the chokeslam he takes.
Yeah, I think so.
So, but he gets chokeslammed out of his shoes, so...
Yes, and Undertaker had a broken foot going into.
Yeah, he was injured going into this match. Yeah,
right.
So it's insane. Like, historic match. Probably hands down in the top 5 of the most historic matches of all time.
Oh right? Yeah.
And you had spots that weren't meant to happen, incidents that didn't happen, people who almost legitly die, injuries galore, people coming in injured. Like, it's insane. But that match makes Mick Foley, right? Mm-hmm. It adds to the prestige of The Undertaker, makes the Hell in a Cell as a match, right? It's just insane.
Yeah, and Mick Foley's, he could have a whole list of these types of things when you talk about ear. Like his ear one. That was one, where it was in Germany against Vader in WCW, and he does a spot that he's done, 1,000 times probably, where he goes through the ropes doing his clothesline, but he gets caught in the his neck caught in the rope, but this one, I guess the ropes were tighter. It was the cables instead of the rope, all that. And so as he tries to push himself off, the pressure's so tight, it rips his ear off.
Yeah.
And I would never want my ear ripped off, but I certainly wouldn't want it ripped off in a foreign country. That just seems like a bad idea. Like,
your choices: ear ripped off in the U.S. or ear ripped off in Germany. I guess the question is, do you get to go sightseeing after your ears ripped off, right?
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, so there's that. The number of concussions, like the Rock match that he had, where he's handcuffed, right?
Yeah,
and he takes all those chair shots.
Hard to watch. Like, just unprotected chair shot after unprotected chair shot, and he can't get a hand up because his hands are handcuffed behind
exactly.
him. So
you just got to eat it. So, before we move on to another one that just popped in my head, I wanted to bring up probably one of the most infamous injuries in the wrestling ring. And this was in Japan between Stan Hansen
and Vader
and the man called Vader.
Oh my gosh. Talk about one you need to Google.
Oh my gosh. No. I will do my best to explain it to you.
Yes.
Do not go look it up. But
kids, don't look it up without your parents' permission. Is what I'm trying to say.
So basically, the gist of the thing is Vader and Hansen are having they haven't even started their match, if I remember right. Like, Vader's just coming into the ring. And because I think Hansen goes like almost like a not per se a punch, but almost like a full on punch, but like almost like a slap, and catches his finger or catches his eye, if I remember correctly how it goes.
I haven't seen it in a long time, so I don't remember at what part of the match, if it was right at the beginning. It wasn't very long into it, but
yeah, I'm pretty sure it's at the beginning. If it's not right at the beginning, it's early in the shot.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So right at the beginning of the match. But he takes a shot to the face, which somehow Stan Hansen gets his finger caught under the eyeball
Oh.
of Vader and pops his eyeball out.
Oof.
He actually ends up, what ends up happening is when he hits him, because they were stiff, these two together were always stiff. He ends up actually breaking the orbital bone, the lower orbital bone of Vader when he hits him, and then when he got his finger caught and pulls his finger back out. So Vader's eyeball is dangling outside of his eye socket, right? Vader has to grab it and plop it back in, and then they continued the match.
Yeah, and then it swells up, so
Yeah,
it looks like a freaking crater in his eyeball socket. You know, it is gruesome. Like,
honestly, it is hands down
watch this.
One of the worst injuries, period, I've ever seen. Right?
Which one's worse, that one or Sid?
Oh, that.
I think
Sid's
so?
right up there. I'm not saying it's not, but like at least Sid is ostensibly all contained in his leg.
You're right. They don't against Vader in WCW, and he does the spot that he's done, 1,000 times probably, where he goes through the ropes doing his clothesline, but he gets caught in the his neck caught in the rope, but this one, I guess the ropes were tighter. It was the cables instead of the rope, all that. And so as he tries to push himself off, the pressure's so tight, it rips his ear off.
Yeah.
And I would never want my ear ripped off, but I certainly wouldn't want it ripped off in a foreign country. That just seems like a bad idea. Like
your choices: ear ripped off in the U.S. or ear ripped off in Germany. I guess the question is: do you get to go sightseeing after your ears ripped off? Right?
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, so there's that. The number of concussions, like the Rock match that he had where he's handcuffed, right?
Yeah,
and he takes all those chair shots.
Hard to watch. Like just unprotected chair shot after unprotected chair shot, and he can't get a hand up because his hands are handcuffed behind
exactly.
him. So
you just got to eat it. So
yeah.
Before we move on to another one that just popped in my head, I wanted to bring up probably one of the most infamous injuries in the wrestling ring. And this was in Japan between Stan Hansen
and Vader
and the man called Vader.
Oh my gosh. Talk about one you need to Google.
Oh
my gosh.
No. I will do my best to explain it to you.
Yes.
Do not go look it up. But
kids, don't look it up without your parents' permission. Is what we're trying to say.
So basically, the gist of the thing is Vader and Hansen are having they haven't even started their match, if I remember right. Like Vader's just coming into the ring. And because I think Hansen goes like almost like a not per se a punch, but almost like a full on punch, but like almost like a slap, and catches his finger or catches his eye, if I remember correctly how it goes.
I haven't seen it in a long time, so I don't remember at what part of the match, if it was right at the beginning. It wasn't very long into it, but
yeah, I'm pretty sure it's at the beginning. If it's not right at the beginning, it's early in the shot.
Right.
So right at the beginning of the match. But he takes a shot to the face, which somehow Stan Hansen gets his finger caught under the eyeball of Vader and pops his eyeball out. He actually ends up, what ends up happening is when he hits him, because they were stiff. These two together were always stiff. He ends up actually breaking the orbital bone, the lower orbital bone of Vader when he hits him, and then when he got his finger caught and pulls his finger back out. So Vader's eyeball is dangling outside of his eye socket, right? Vader has to grab it and plop it back in, and then they continued the match.
Yeah, and then it swells up. So
Yeah,
it looks like a freaking crater in his
yeah,
eyeball socket. it
it
is
is.
gruesome. Like, do not
Honestly, it is
eat
hands
and then
down
watch this.
one of the worst injuries, period, I've ever seen. Right?
Which one's worse, that one or Sid?
Oh, that
I
Uh,
I think
Sid's
so.
right up there. I'm not saying it's not, but like at least Sid is ostensibly all contained in his leg.
You're right. They don't take the boot off and show you
Yeah.
Like if they did that, that might make it worse.
Yeah.
But we're talking about injury A and injury 1 and injury 1B, 1A and 1B.
Yeah, exactly.
They're interchangeable.
There's another one that's on that list too that I would put as 1B, 1C.
Okay.
And this is one that every single person who knows I'm a wrestler, who has TikTok, has sent me. It is this Yardy indie pro wrestler. I don't even know who he was, right? But he was going into the ring. He comes into the ring, and he's a bigger dude. He's probably 250 plus, but not very tall. Gets up onto the second rope to pop the ring, pop the crowd.
I think I know the one you're talking about, but continue.
He jumps back to come off, and I don't know how he does it. And I don't know if it was just the ring, the way he landed, what have you, but he ends up breaking his kneecaps because he had all his momentum going backwards and legs fold forward towards him like he's the Wicked Witch of the West, right? It was the most disgusting thing I've ever seen, next to maybe Vader's eyeball, and I'd also put that up there with Sid Vicious. But it was disgusting. And all of my so-called friends who know I'm a wrestler sent that video to me within like the span of a week. So I love you, but screw you all. I'm never gonna get it out of my brain. But I want to go back to talking about a couple other injuries. One that came to mind as we were talking earlier was the quad injury for Triple H.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So Triple H is in a tag match. It is him and Austin against Jericho and Benoit, I believe.
Yep, it is on Monday Night Raw. Mm-hmm.
Yep. And Triple H ends up giving Jericho his double A spine buster, and in the process of that, blows out his quad, like completely rolls it up. Like you can see the muscle roll up on his leg, but they don't stop the match. They don't do anything. Like H continues to go, and so much so that they end up going to another spot where he gives Jericho the pedigree through, I can't remember if it was the regular announce table or Spanish announce table, but through the table while injured. He also does a save for a pin while injured.
I remember that. And didn't Jericho put the Walls of Jericho on?
Oh yeah, he puts the Walls of Jericho on it too. Yeah. Table. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, he was out for a good long while after that. Speaking of quad injuries, though.
As soon as I said I knew which one you were going to go to next.
Vince McMahon going into the ring. It was right after a Royal Rumble where it was the one where Batista and John Cena both went out at the same time.
Yeah, the Royal Rumble botch.
Yes. The one that was not planned. The two winners, and they had to restart the match. So Vince McMahon struts out there and slides into the ring to reorder this match to start. He's all angry, blows his quad, right? And then he tries to stand up, blows his other quad.
Yep.
Like both quads. And just from like nothing. Like we talked earlier about like the simplest things being the worst injury, leading to the worst injuries. Nothing could be more simple than that. It was literally not a move, not a wrestling move, sliding into the ring.
Well, he was old man. even then, it's that old man breaking his hip, getting up kind of scenario. The best part was he's sitting on the ring, and he's yelling at everyone.
Yes. Oh my gosh. He did not break character for a moment.
He did not. So, yeah. And keeping in the family, WrestleMania last year, Shane McMahon ends up blowing out, I think he blows out his quad as well, in a match that was supposed to be quote unquote impromptu with The Miz, which ended up becoming one of the funniest spots ever. Goes for a leapfrog, comes down and blows out his quad.
Oh yeah,
and he's getting attended to. And out of nowhere, Snoop Dogg decides he's in this match now. And he puts Miz down and then runs the crappiest rope runs I've ever seen. And drops the shittiest elbow.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And then eats the pin. Or Miz eats the pin. That was so good. Quad injuries are infamous in wrestling, though.
Yes. Talking about these injuries, it reminded me of an injury to Randy Orton, where Randy Orton, I think it was he blew his shoulder out or something, or dislocated his shoulder. He was, how right before he does an RKO, or at least before, he used to set it up, before it was out of nowhere, he used to set it up where he would pound the mat with his fists.
Yep.
Well, he's doing this, and I guess he hit the mat too hard, and his shoulder completely goes out of its socket. It's pretty gruesome. Yeah, that one was, but he was healing it up the whole time, too. His shoulder's out, and he's still yelling at fans and everything. Dedication to your craft, I guess, and your character work.
Right. You also have John Cena rupturing his bursitis in his elbow and having that big old knot on the elbow.
Ooh.
It caused him to be out for months. He also tore his pec, which caused him to be out for 6 months out of the 9 months expected until he came back at the at Royal Rumble. Go
ahead.
I was going to say there's Seth Rollins blowing out his knee at the house show.
Yeah. Sasha Banks, Mercedes Moné, injuring Paige, Saraya, at a house show where she put her knees up, and hit her in the back of the neck. And basically ended her career until she, got cleared to wrestle for AEW. So that happened.
And then also Sasha Banks breaking her ankle in New Japan.
Yep. So that I didn't actually watch that happen, but I know.
I didn't watch it happen either. I missed the actual video of the injury. I just saw her being carried off later.
Yeah. Gosh, I mean, so many. I'm trying to think. Obviously, the concussion that Bret Hart got at the hand or at the feet. I almost said at the hands of, but at the feet of Goldberg. Yeah. Goldberg basically just kicking him into a concussion and ending his career. I'm still mad at Goldberg for that one. We could have enjoyed some good Bret Hart matches coming back to the WWE.
Yeah, Bret could have put his hand up too.
Yeah. If he knew that he was going to kick him like that. So, I guess the call was watch the kick. It's okay.
If I hear watch the kick. If I hear watch the kick, my hand is coming right to my face instantly. So
yeah, watch it with your face. Yeah.
That being said, in my younger years, I actually had a list of people who I did knock out in the ring with my kicks.
Zen.
That's
the one I remember.
He was not a kick though. His was the air raid crash from the second rope.
I thought it was the kick through where you hit the ropes and you kick them in the like. It wasn't the kick.
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. That kick actually was the night like one of the nice ones. That actually looks sick. Now I forgot about that kick. No, that kick was the first time I did the face wash.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, and no, I kicked the crap out of him, but it wasn't the one that knocked him out. It was when I came off the second with the for the finish. I came off the second with the air raid crash.
Was that the same match?
Uh-huh.
Okay, because I remember it was his sister mad at you, right?
Nope. It was his girlfriend Victoria.
It was his girlfriend, that's right. Yeah, it was super was mad at you and cussing you out.
Yes, she did.
Yes.
So but yeah, no, it was the area crash, which I almost injured you with too at one point.
Oh Jesus! Yeah,
you remember that?
Yeah, I remember. And Brandy cussed my ex-wife cussed you out.
Yeah, too. Yeah. So, but no, Duggan, I knocked out with the super kick. Jimmy Daniels, I knocked out his teeth with a super kick, but that wasn't hard. You just had to blow in his teeth.
Jimmy, we love you.
Yep, I love you, man. Addin, I did the Jushin Thunder Liger roll in the corner on him. I told him to put his hand up for the kick because I have no clue where he's going to end up being to protect himself, and he didn't, and he ended up eating it while he was on the top rope, and I had to quickly catch him and then bring him off the top rope. Brad Landon with I think that same kick as well, same thing. I told him to put his hand up and he didn't, but that he was actually just in the corner. It's part of the reason why I retired. That it was after I got added because I got Brad first. Who else was there? There was somebody else. A little sick. I knocked him out with a super kick, but that was asked for. He told me to kick him as hard as I could, so I did.
And you gladly obliged.
Yeah. So, yeah, there's a lot of people. Like, people don't understand. Like, I kick hard.
Yeah, I know. You're stiff as hell.
I'm a lot better now.
You've lightened up?
Oh yeah, a ton. Dude, I am fairly
your punches you're like, it's not stiff. It's like, yeah, it is. Your punches are so stiff.
Not anymore. Take a punch from me now, Sega. Take a punch from me now.
No, thank you.
And remember, by the way, you trained me, so
I don't think I trained you on punches.
No, actually, anybody that was Morgan, but
yes, I cannot claim that.
That being said, are there any other injuries we're thinking of?
Well, I mean, there is one, with like, there's this wrestler. He got in the ring and his leg fell off. You might have known Zach Gowen.
I wouldn't call that an injury, or at least not an injury in the ring.
Like, his whole leg was gone. Like, I don't know.
There was the injury attempt that Kane did to him when he tried to push him down the stairs.
I thought that was Brock Lesnar.
Was that Lesnar? I thought it was Kane.
No, Brock Lesnar in the wheelchair.
Oh yeah. Okay, that was Lesnar.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Or that one was pretty sick. I had to bring up Zach Gowen because that was funny.
Yeah, he needs a leg up every chance he gets.
Oh my gosh.
All right. Well, with that being said, guys, I mean, there's so many injuries out there.
I'm sure we missed some.
I'm sure we have
tons, hundreds.
Yeah, hundreds of them out there.
Maybe a part 2 when we do some more research.
We actually do research for once. That'd be a change. With that being said, guys, reach out to us on our social media, Be Hero Media on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and tell us any of them that we missed? What were some of the ones that you remember? I'm not gonna say enjoyed, but remembered. And for God's sakes, please don't go look at the one
Google!
with Vader. Do
Google
not
it!
go look at Vader. Do not go look at Sid Vicious. They're just disgusting. You can also reach out to us directly at, for myself, it's Mike Burke DCW on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, and Mike Burke Pro on Twitter. You can also reach out to Psycho at Psycho Wrestling on Facebook. All right, guys. And then for the upcoming shows for Devotion Championship Wrestling, we just had a great show last weekend called End Term. And so following that, we have some great shows coming up. Our next show coming up is on June 22nd, Tussle Time 13 at Kamikazes. It is a great show. It is a 21 older show, but it's always a good time because you can drink alcohol there. You get to hear a lot funner words there than you do at a regular show. And then following that,
Hulk Hogan alcohol?
I doubt the Hulk Hogan's alcohol there.
Yeah.
And following that, we'll be at Ace's Saloons for bar fights on June 5th. That's no rings, no rules, but a whole lot of fun. And then following that is our next show coming up July 6th, Great American Day. I'm super excited for that show. It's always a fun time. I don't know about the rest of you guys, but the 4th of July time is always a good time for me. I always enjoy it. So I hope you guys will too and come out to those shows. You can reach out to us for information on all of those shows and tickets for those shows on Facebook and Instagram at Devotion Championship Wrestling, on Twitter at DCW Salt Lake City, and on TikTok at Devotion Wrestling. All right, Psycho. Anything else where I'm missing? Anything else you can think of?
I think that's pretty much a wrap.
All righty. Well, for the rest of Be Hero Media, he has been Psycho, I have been me, and this is us tapping out. Have a good night, guys.